So thank you very much to have joined for this webinar, Energy Crisis, how to tackle both next winter urgency and long-term planning to reduce cost and GHG emission in heating and cooling sector, which is organized by the Covenant of Mayors Office. My name is Julien Joubert. I'm working for the Covenant of Mayors Office, and I'm working on different EU-funded projects related to heating and cooling and buildings decarbonization. Today, we are going to speak about short-term measures for this winter, as well as more long-term planning that can be done by cities, and also EU legislation having an impact on heating and cooling. My colleague Fausto Zaccaro from the Covenant of Mayors Office and Amélie Ancel will also present, and I thank them for joining today. So this webinar is mostly intended for the Covenant of Mayors coordinator. We are supporting cities in implementing their sustainable energy and climate action plan, but of course it's open to everyone, and we are really happy that you are here, and we'll take time at the end also to discuss about your situation and your needs, and how the Covenant of Mayors Office can also support you, and potential other session we could organize. So without more delay, I give the floor to Fausto for the first presentation regarding the Cities Energy Saving Sprint, which was launched by the Covenant of Mayors initiatives. Fausto, the floor is yours.
Well, hello everyone. Let me share my presentations and we can fire it up already. Does it work? Yes. Okay, great. So again, good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us today in our webinar, tackling the nexus between the unfolding energy crisis that we are experiencing today and the recent developments in local heating and cooling planning. My name is Fausto Zaccaro. I'm an intern at the Covenant of Mayors Office, and I've been coordinating the city's energy saving sprint, as well as writing the toolkits with potential measures municipalities can take to critically reduce the energy demands. It will be my pleasure to introduce you to the campaign, as well as giving you a quick walkthrough to the toolkit itself. So let's start by stating the obvious, that our energy dependence on Russia is financing Putin's atrocities in Ukraine. There is no other way to frame it. On the other side, Putin is well aware of the leverage he has on our economies. We have seen how difficult it has been to find a compromise on banning fossil fuels imports from Russia so far, coal and only partially petrol. When supply diversification has its limits and renewable and efficiency improvements take their time to be deployed, there is only one short-term solution left: avoid consumption of energy at all. But why now? Because every kilowatt we save now will accelerate the refill of our gas storages throughout the summer, which means greater balance of supply ahead during the colder months. Because every gram of greenhouse gas emissions will mean that it will inhibit Russian war machine to advance deeper into Ukrainian territory. So what is the energy saving sprint, city's energy saving sprint? It is a campaign designed to raise awareness across local governments in Europe, but also about spreading immediately available opportunities to reduce energy demand and to facilitate the phase out of Russian gas. It was launched in May 19 as a joint initiative from the Covenant of Mayors, as well as the European Commission and the European Committee of the Regions. Cities interested to join can sign up to it and implement energy-saving measures outlined in the toolkit, but also beyond it. The campaign is meant to last for 4 months until the European Sustainable Energy Week in late September, the 26th from the 26th September to the 30th. When a stock-taking exercise will be taking place to collect the results of energy-saving measures municipalities have been taken so far. The initiative received the support from the Energy Commissioner Kadri Simpson with a letter of to mayors translated in all 24 languages, as well as political endorsement from deputy mayors from Amsterdam, from Brussels, from Lyon and Paris. And finally, also a wonderful video message from Rafał Trzaskowski, the mayor of Warsaw. So why cities? Over the past 2 years, cities have found themselves to be at the front line of hardships, strengthening their capacities in crisis management and displaying solidarity. Whether it has been a pandemic or an influx of refugees fleeing from war. Why shouldn't cities now be the deal breaker vis-à-vis Russia? Why shouldn't cities be taking a stand in the energy crisis that is raging across Europe? Municipal budgets are already posed under stress by growingly expensive utility bills, affecting the capacity of local authorities to provide services and fulfill their obligations with subcontractors. Well, for starters, local administrations are at the forefront of the ownership of large stocks of buildings, vehicles, infrastructures, and energy and services in urban areas. This means that initiatives to save energy undertaken by single municipal authorities are capable to deliver the most substantial share of local demand reduction. Another compelling argument is that municipalities are the most knowledgeable and territorial public authorities that are in place, including critical energy demanding infrastructures and services that would allow more effective and targeted approaches compared to homogeneous and superficial national intervention. And finally, there are the citizens. Municipalities are the closest level of government to the population and their respective lifestyle. They are public actors that through initiatives and urban planning are capable to induce sustainable behavioral changes. They are very knowledgeable of the stakeholderships present in their cities, including margins of improvements to reduce energy demands. So what measures we propose in the toolkits? The publication itself explores different angles from which municipalities can address energy savings. Here, for example, you can see a non-exhaustive list of measures that range from public illuminations, transport, campaigning, and contingency standards. But today, the superstar is heating and cooling planning. So let me delve deeper into the sections on temperature setups. Unsurprisingly, impactful category in which municipalities can take immediate actions are heating and cooling settings in their public buildings. Indoor temperature setting represents a huge potential in energy savings. It entails a reassessment of comfort zones to maintain a sufficient level of well-being in terms of ambience while avoiding energy consumption. Setting heating temperatures not higher than 20 to 19 degrees in winter and cooling not lower than 26 degrees in summer can lead to effective savings. Water boilers are no different. 60 degrees is the optimal temperature to guarantee a modest level of comfort and prevent pipes networks to breed bacteria. Rolling out smart thermostats in public buildings also tap into a pool of wasted energy that can save up to 10% of consumption compared to the business as usual scenarios. With us, we have found testimonies from cities that have been presented in our toolkit. But again, notably Amsterdam, which has since March 30th, it has been reducing indoor temperatures in public building from 21 to 18 degrees, with the exceptions of sensitive areas such as archives, health facilities, and orphanages, which have seen the temperature drop only to 20 degrees. Not a spontaneous and hurried choice, but it gathered about 60 local stakeholders from the private sector and civil society before the municipality could greenlight it. So, how to join the campaign? You can register to this energy saving sprint. You can read the toolkit. You can access the communications kit. You can visit the Covenant of Mayors website for more relevant events related to the sprint. Send us an email, which is taken care of by me anyway. And I can now thank you very much for your very appreciated attentions and leave the words back to Julian.
Thank you very much, Fausto. Then we are going to take some questions from the audience. If you have any questions, or you can ask in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself or raise your hand, because we are not so many. So maybe it's nicer if we take the question directly orally. So I don't know if anyone would have a question for Fausto. I don't see any question in the chat. Maybe I have a question, Fausto. What will be the sprint from October onward? What will happen after October?
Thank you, Julian. For now, as I've shared, the city's energy saving sprint will last until September, and it has a timeline of only 4 months. The purpose it has been to prepare municipalities ahead of energy hardships for colder months. But of course, we need to take into account that energy saving measures will be the most at needs for the colder months itself. So although the sprint ends at the end of September, we can definitely ensure that the campaign will be prolonged, will go forward and towards winter and towards spring, and during the months in which natural gas is mostly used. We don't know yet which form will be taking place. We might go into providing longer and more sustainable frameworks to maintain energy saving measures, or we could also plan more technical contingency plans that could be undertaken at the municipality level. We still need to assess what are the opportunities at stake, but definitely the campaign will go on.
Okay, thanks. We start to have some questions in the chat. First question is there anything for specific for rural area?
The city's energy saving sprint has, of course, has a scope that is very much radicated into urban areas themselves. But of course, it is not to be neglected, the importance of rural areas and the linkages it has with urban areas themselves. And for now, it has not had specific areas providing instances in terms of rural areas themselves. But now that you raised the questions, we can actually take a scope and see where we can find nexuses with rural areas themselves, because of course we need to take into account that the need of urban areas are very different from those from the countryside and for those areas that are less populated.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe it's worth to mention also that a number of smaller municipalities signed for the Covenant of Mayors initiative. So we'll see also the smaller city would join the campaign, and we are going to share their emergency measures also with the other smaller municipality, which are more from rural area maybe. One question regarding the participation in the program in Eastern Europe, and if there is a need for more participants, for example, in Czech Republic.
Well, the city's the sprint, it had quite a growing pool of participants that did not only stop at the border of the European Union, but it also spread a lot into our eastern neighborhoods. We have been having signatories from Moldova, from Georgia, and a lot of support from Ukraine, to which our city's energy saving sprint has a lot of connections. And of course, the toolkit is not only open to cities and municipalities, as well as little towns, as you have mentioned, Julian, only to those present within the member states of the European Union, but they are, of course, free to be taken from Eastern Partnership countries, as well as our neighborhood of the European Union. We need to take into account that the sprint itself has a lot of confrontational and geopolitical aspects, and those areas that are afflicted by energy weaponization of Russia, of course, are very welcome to take into account those measures that we have been advising. and they are very much welcome to showcase to us what they've been doing.
Yeah, and I think we have never enough participation to be ready for winter. So yes, of course, dissemination in as many countries as possible is very welcome. Thanks for the question. I don't see any more, so we'll move to the next presentation by Amélie regarding the EU policy framework and its impact on heating and cooling. Thanks, Amélie.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot for the invitation. So yeah, we'll give you within 10 minutes a quick overview of the Fit for 55 and Repower EU and the impact it can have on heating and cooling sector. So I won't go much into details because 10 minutes is short, but just to give you at least an overview, and then in the questions, maybe we can have more discussion. So when we talk about the Fit for 55, I guess that now most of you have an idea of what we are talking about because it's been out for already almost a year now. So Fit for 55 is basically how the EU will reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030. There is a range of sectors in which measures should be taken, directives, legislations will be reviewed. So you have them all listed here. And when we talk about heating and cooling, we will mostly focus on these 4 sections: on renewable energy, energy efficiency, and we will quickly touch upon EU emissions trading system and the social climate fund. So let's deep dive directly. There is the Renewable Energy Directive, which is already an old directive, which has been already revised twice, and now which is the so-called RED III. In the initial proposal of the Commission, there was a target of the share of renewable energy in the final energy mix of 40%. But now with the Repower EU, which I will mention later, the Commission is actually proposing a target of 45%. In its draft report, the Parliament was aligning with the 40%, so the old target, but ongoing discussions have already shown that MEPs are quite prompt to be more ambitious than this, so there should be no problem for the Council. They are at the moment still aligned on the 40%. They haven't yet been into deep discussions regarding these new targets from the Repower EU, so we are not quite sure yet of what will be the final decision, but let's say that there is in general a show for ambition. But what is really interesting for us beyond this question of renewables in the final energy mix is what's the impact for the renewable heating and cooling. And there are some provisions in Article 23 and 24 of the Renewable Energy Directive, which are focusing on this. In terms of renewable heating and cooling in general in this sector, the Commission and the Parliament aligned so far on this target of increase of 1.1 percentage point per year of renewables within the sector, while the Council has slightly less ambition and is more aiming at 0.8% increase. This is also the case for renewable heating and cooling in district heating. There are targets to increase this, as you can see in the table, by 2.1 percentage point. 2.1 percentage points, per year for district heating. The Council hasn't strong views on the moment, so this is like kind of to give you this big overview. Just to keep in mind that all the elements here are at the moment temporary because the European Parliament still needs to vote this in committee on the 13th of July, then in plenary in September, and then there will be the trilogues, which means that the Commission, the Council, and the Parliament will have to agree together on what will be the final text. What is very interesting to watch is that there is a provision in Article 23 which says that regional and local authorities above 20,000 inhabitants may have to have this assessment plans for seeing what are the renewable and waste heating and cooling potential within their area. There is also the question of mandatory connection for third-party suppliers to district heating and cooling systems where there is an increase of demand, when there are new consumers, or where there is need to replace some existing heating and cooling fuels which are not sustainable. So this is discussed. And there is also the recognition of the role of energy communities within this, on this increase of renewables in the share of the mix. And this could also have a strong impact in terms of heating communities, for instance. So this is something to be watched and which will happen in the next month and years. If we move now to the Energy Efficiency Directive, same, so there are propositions in the initial text. The Commission wanted 9% of energy savings in 2030 compared to 2020. Now with the Repower EU, the ambition is increased to 13%. As you can see, the European Parliament in its draft report is more ambitious and is suggesting 19% of reduction, and the Council is mostly aligned with the first position of the Commission. Two interesting elements for cities in the Energy Efficiency Directive. So there is this proposal that, let's say, local authorities must lead by example by having 3% of their floor area, of the public building floor area, renovated per year. And an interesting addition is in Article 23, which makes it mandatory for cities above a certain threshold to have heat mapping and planning. So the initial text by the Commission proposes 50,000 inhabitants. In its draft report, which was issued in February, I think the Parliament proposed a threshold of 20,000 inhabitants. Now, in line with the upcoming vote in committee in the Parliament on the 13th of July, the word is saying that basically a compromise could be found on the threshold of up to 35,000 inhabitants, which is, let's say, an in-between between the proposal of the Commission and the proposal of the Parliament. So this is a point also which we will hear more about next week. And another point to be watched is the question of the definition of efficient district heating and cooling, which is Article 24 of this directive. And basically it gives a timeline with the different energy sources which will enter into account, which will be taken into account when defining an efficient district heating and cooling. And one of the more discussed point is the question of cogeneration, which is in the proposal of the Commission disappearing from 2035 on. So this creates a lot of discussions among cities and amongst countries, because there are many countries where cogeneration is actually playing a high part when it comes to district heating. So these are the elements also to be watched. And for the timeline in general, you see the same dates than for the Renewable Energy Directive, because they will be discussed more or less in parallel by the Parliament and then in trilogues. Then the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, or the EPBD. So there has been a draft report by the rapporteur Kernkauf, which was published on the 6th of June, so very recent. And in general, this report is very ambitious. It's very ambitious not only because it forces an important role of local authorities. There is one amendment which really says that local authorities should be recognized as central when it comes to undertaking all this renovation process and etc. There is also a proposal of having an integrated renovation program, an integrated building approach. So it's not only just having a global plan, it's really to plan per district what will be done, not only in terms of building renovation, but also how can it be integrated with, for instance, the heating and cooling plans, which are foreseen in the Energy Efficiency Directive, or also in terms of mobility decarbonization. There is really this will to have the holistic approach when it comes to renovation, which is quite new and quite a strong say from the rapporteur. And one of the key measures is also this will to have one-stop shop for 50,000 inhabitants. So there is really also this recognition of one-stop shops as enablers of the transition and as key elements to focus on, and which are kind of entry points for citizens and for other stakeholders to make sure that this is also an onboarding thing, an overarching element, and that everyone can easily access renovation to or for his or her house. The council hasn't been discussing the EPBD yet, so this is just what I'm presenting you. It's just what is in the draft report from the rapporteur, and there will be votes in committee on the 26th of October or around this date. I will just quickly mention the energy trading system and the social climate fund. So the ETS or ETS2 is basically the will to extend the carbon price to the house, the heating, and the transport sector. So that's why I want to mention it here, because it will influence the heating sector. But so the European Parliament and the Council have been discussing and agreeing on some elements, but it has been quite a complicated discussion, and yet a lot of elements are not sure in terms of starting date, in terms of will it only concern commercial use, should consumers be also included in this, what about free allowances phase out, and for the social climate plan, the social climate fund, there is also the question for member states to draft some plans, to also see which measures they want to include in those plans, and make sure that so there will be enough funds to finance these. And you can see already, for instance, that the Council wants a maximum of 59 billion euro for this fund, while the European Commission and the European Parliament are a bit more ambitious. So all of this is not yet clear, and this is something which should still be followed, because it will have an impact, and it can have a huge impact on consumers also, and on the heating sector. So now to quickly come to the Repower EU, which has been in the news in the last month. So this is basically the answer from the European Commission to the Russian aggression on Ukraine, and so the war which was triggered. Basically, Repower EU consists in 3 pillars, where there is one on energy savings, there is one on diversifying energy sources, and at the moment we are more talking about finding new gas sources or LNG and etc. And there is also a pillar on accelerating the clean energy transition, meaning an increasing share of renewable energy sources within the final mix. This will represent a total of, or this should be a total of 210 billion investments. So the big question is, how do we get this money and how will it work? So you can see on the picture that there are really several sectors which are tackled with a different share of the cake, let's say. And why are we discussing about this? Because energy efficiency, heat pump, but also district heating are really mentioned within this fund as a solution which should be explored. So basically, member states will have to include within their recovery and resilience plans a section on Repower EU, where they will say, okay, what measures they will tackle, what plans they want to make, and how they want to use this money. So the question is now, where does the money come from? It can come from the Recovery and Resilience Fund, because there are some money here which has not been used, especially when we talk about loans. It can be a redirection of the Cohesion Policy Fund up to 12.5%. The same for the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development. It can also be about the Connecting Europe facility. It can also be some allowances from the ETS, which would be redirected to the Repower EU. So there are many possibilities to fund this and try and reduce the dependency on Russian gas. Repower EU is also leaving a strong place for hydrogen and elements like that. So let's see also what in the end will be the share of the cake which can be taken by renewables and heating and cooling in this. So this was the short and quick presentation from my side.
Thank you, Amélie. Are there any questions from the audience regarding this short overview? As you have seen, there will be a lot of upcoming regulation, which will have quite an impact on cities and the local level. So it's really important to start to be prepared, and city to be prepared, but also regional, region, but also regional and local energy agencies. Are there any questions?
Can I directly speak? It's
sure.
Nigris from Italy, Piemonte region. So, okay, there is a general remark, which is maybe not very useful, but it is in terms of timing. We are in 2022, and most of these will be approved in the next month. Then it should be adopted by member states, and the implementation is a bit far. So, okay, it's always a little bit tricky because we are setting challenging targets for 2030, and most of the road is already gone away. So, but okay, we cannot do more a lot with this remark, so it's quite useless. A question could be if is there the intention by the Commission to revise a little bit the taxonomy process that led, let's say, efficient natural gas investment still available for investment, for subsidies or not?
Well, I guess you saw yesterday that the European Parliament voted the gas and nuclear as part of the taxonomy, and that they consider gas is still a transition fuel. So there will still be some subsidies going to gas. What I can tell you is that already some countries plan to take them to court to try and avoid this from happening. But I'm not sure. It depends on what the court will say, but I am not sure that there will be a big turnover, and that the Commission will say that in the end they want to exclude gas totally. Because also when you look at Repower EU, it's not excluding gas; it's still considering it, but from other sources, other countries. So I'm afraid that fossil gas, won't be excluded from the taxonomy or from funding in the next years. I don't know, Fausto, you want to add something, or?
The countries that want to press charges to these decisions are Luxembourg and Denmark so far.
Austria also.
Also Austria,
yeah.
So they're joining up. And what we can perhaps hope is that perhaps court could be going against this decision taken in the Parliament. Yesterday, there has been a lot of stab in the backs, I guess, yesterday during the plenary in Strasbourg. But I don't think, I do align with Amélie in this case, of course, that we cannot hope for a quick review of the taxonomy in the short term, unfortunately.
Maybe related to Silvio's remarks, what could be the room for maneuver and changes of all of these different policies that you presented, Amelia?
Well, I think that mostly so some of them are already quite advanced, as you saw in the presentation, like the Energy Efficiency Directive or the Renewable Energy Directive. They will be voted in committee next week and early September in plenary. But what can be still interesting to focus on will be when there will be the implementation guidelines by the Commission. So first there will be the trilogue. So maybe you can also try to talk with the different actors, maybe the council, etc. But I think that the implementation guidelines can still be a good way of trying and direct the member states into having an ambitious way of translating the law and making sure that the framework in which they will be translated won't be closing some doors, or will also open the possibility to go further and be maybe more ambitious than what the initial directive is focusing on. There is also maybe the possibilities to see member states will have to submit their national energy and climate plans, the revised version next year. So this can be also a way, if we manage, or you manage, to have an ambitious plan for your NECPs, maybe it can already give a good direction, which will anyway go further than what is planned, and that is also very important. And I think the discussion, and to be sure that what is happening at the local level or initiatives which are very important are reflected within these NECPs to also set a target and go further.
Yeah, there are probably a lot of lobbying to do, maybe, so that the national plan already maybe anticipates the new EU directive, even if they are not approved now. The draft version are quite well known, and maybe the national plans to be submitted and to be reviewed for next year can already anticipate some of this provision, especially regarding role of local authorities and appropriate support, let's say, to implement that without waiting for the official transposition, let's say. Are there other questions regarding policies? Any directives? If not, we'll move to the last part of this webinar. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, normally you should be able to see my screen, which is a part on useful tools and methods for heating and cooling decarbonization. So here we are not anymore at the urgency, let's say, measures, but more about the planning of the transition, more in the mid and long term, because we know that the decarbonization of the entire energy system is a marathon and is going to last for the next decades. And it's something which needs to be started right now. So of course, there are different national context, let's say. But I hope you can find useful information for your context anyway. So as you have seen, the heat planning should become mandatory for cities in the next years. It's already the case in some countries. What is concretely heat planning at local level? It can be described in different steps, which step 0 and step 1 being first to understand what is the current local situation regarding heating and cooling, what is, for instance, the demand and the context, let's say, who is concerned by heating and cooling planning, first to raise awareness about the needs of this specific sector, especially in the building sector. Then the second step will be more to analyze the current demand, but also the current potential of renewable and local waste heat, for instance, which is more the step 2 and 3 of this diagram. Based on that, it's possible to draft strategies and scenarios for decarbonization and to evaluate and select the most relevant technologies at district level, depending on the local context. And then once the strategy is approved, of course, there is a concrete implementation. All these steps include to look at the different technology, to look at the different stakeholders involved, and at the right policy instrument to be mobilized. And here, the Coordinated Measures Office, we have started to gather some resources from different EU projects. The work is not done yet, but we still present a list that can be useful to, if you look more information and best practice from European example. It's not exhaustive, and there are still some point and technology missing, but anyway, we'll if you have also feedback and also additional resources, we are very welcome to integrate them. Just to say that it's now also perfect timing for planning and stakeholders engagement, because there is a high awareness of citizens and stakeholders, of course, about energy prices. Sense of urgency and solidarity is really more important than in the previous year. And also, unfortunately, because of the disturbance of the supply chain to implement works, for example, to get a heat pump, for example, at the moment, it's quite complicated. If you order a heat pump, you will probably get it more beginning of next year. So anyway, it's difficult to act in a rush, but then means it's a very good timing for involving all the stakeholders and continue planning, improve planning, and improve heat strategy for midterm and long-term decarbonization. And so the first step we said is raising awareness and mobilization at local level. So here are a number of resources about different technology that can be useful, and you can maybe take some of this example for your local context as the best cases to be showcased. For example, HeatNet Northwest Europe project developed a guide for district heating, and also a non-technical guide for low temperature district heating. The HARP project, which focus on different countries, have produced a document with heating solution and potential. You can find fact sheets on different technology from the front project. very interesting publication from the International Energy Agency about solar heat for cities and how to integrate solar heating in district heating, with a lot of example and data regarding the price of this technology and so on. You have also to take inspiration. It's really important. It's always useful to have an example. For example, the Keep Warm project, they have done a list of pilot projects in Central and Eastern Europe, which can be showcased as good example, as well as the Cool Heat project. Bioenergy produce also a document regarding advantages of biomass for energy. As well as SEDEC regarding potential of gas for green gas for the energy system. So that's some of the resources that can be useful to raise awareness about potential of clean technology in the heating and cooling sector. Then the second step is more the mapping of what is current energy demand at local level, but what is also the potential of renewable and waste heat potential. And again, some EU project produce different guides and methods. The HeatNet Northwest Europe produced a guide to heat mapping. The Interreg Untrained project also produced a guide for simplified evaluation for the potential for renewable heat. And there is also the Hot Maps tool or the Pan-European Thermal Atlas that I will present a bit more just after. After having listed also some useful resources about planning and how city already do planning. The Decarb City PIES 2050 project is the EU project which involves 7 cities which are developing heating and cooling plants at the moment. And so they share the learning with others via 3 different guides. 2 of them soon available on the project website. One is the guidance for cities developing heating and cooling plants. Another one is also a summary of what is the plans of these cities, what is the process and the process they used, but also the principle also that they use to establish this heating and cooling strategy that you can find more in detail. And one guide is also explaining techno-economical possibilities for heating and cooling decarbonization and what is the link between the different systems. And especially it's really interesting when it comes to sector coupling, because of course intervening of the porous grid or the district heating grid and using technologies such as, for example, industrial heat pump as a impact, of course, on both systems. In terms of planning tools and methods, there are also the Front project, which developed an online cost estimation tool. You can find also different guide for policymaker, local and regional policymaker from the Heat Roadmap Europe, but also from the Shift project. And coming to tools, I will give you a short overview of different tools, some useful more for national and regional level. The first tool that you might know is the Low Emission Analysis Platform, which is a tool developed by the Stockholm Environment Institute. Is more to be used at a national and regional level. It's not a GIS tool, but it's not specific to heating and cooling sector, but it can be used for energy and emission scenario analysis, energy policy analysis, and climate change mitigation assessment. And it's more for modeling of policy scenario for medium and long term, typically 20-50 years, but can be useful for region when doing regional scenarios. The PETA tool is a Pan-European Thermal Atlas. It's a website which is free, and you can see it's a GIS tool, and you can have maps showing the staticos of the heat sector and energy efficiency potential in the building, transport, and industry sector. And it provides specific data regarding heat demand, which can be reused for energy planning. Yeah, the PETA tool is available in English. You already have data in, and it's a free one. But the LEAP one is a software that you need to download. It's not free, and you also have some default data in, but it's available in different languages. It's more for ministry, national council agencies, where the PETA tool is more for local authority, planning department, energy agency, and consultancy, for instance. When it comes to other tools for district level, one interesting tool is a city energy analyst used by some local energy agency. For example, the one of Dublin is using this tool. Is a 3 tool, GIS1, which allows to do energy modeling at neighborhood and district level. It allows analysis, but also visualization. It's quite interesting because you can develop full scenario on future cost, emission, energy consumption, and you can find optimal location, size, and operation for different energy generation and distribution technology. It's not also focused on heating and cooling, and you can also do modeling for power sector, for example, and other sector. Thermos tool was developed the EU-funded project Thermos, and it's a tool specifically on district and cooling networks, and it allows to do pre-feasibility and case study to optimize and develop heating and cooling networks. And it's really designed to allow easy pre-feasibility study for district heating. So it's more let's say district level to be used, and it's a free tool. The hot maps tool is also a tool designed more for the heating and cooling sector. You already have some default data for EU28 included in. It's a GIS tool which more allow mapping and planning at city district level. Is less detailed a geographical scope than the Thermos one, but it's more to identify in which area you can, for example, develop district heating and cooling, and in which area you should more develop other technologies. And you have some default data regarding the potential for renewable and waste heating and cooling, for example, and you can develop scenario for the long term. So it's more for municipalities and cities. So all these 3 tools are available in English. 2 of them are available online. They are all 3, and they're mainly for planning department of cities, energy agencies, consultancy, or even district heating company, for instance. And finally, some tools for the building level. So more detailed and specific. One is Energy Pro, which is not free, is a tool which is specific for district heating and cooling to do pre-feasibility, but develop also full DHC system, and also optimize the operation of the plant themselves. So it's really more concrete, focused on concrete cases and plants. Sofena tool is a tool available in German to do pre-feasibility studies and also dispatch and economic analysis of the supply by district heating system. So these 2 tools more ready for district heating very specifically, while 2 other tools are more at the building level but can be useful when you do planning and mapping, is to do some archetype of building to try to estimate the total consumption of a city, for example. So 2 tools, which are, one is EnerCAD free, which allows heat balance optimization of building and estimation of active solar potential. So it's to understand and test building design in terms of energy efficiency, especially. And the other one is Energy Plus. It's more or less the same kind of tool, allowing building energy modeling and energy analysis and thermal load simulation program, so to model energy consumption in buildings. So they are not all available in English, but they are more ready for detail level and building level. When it comes to implementation of heating and cooling heat strategies, yeah, you can find different resources. I'm not going to go in details regarding that, but you can see, click on the link, we'll send you the PowerPoint regarding, for instance, upgrading the performance of district heating networks, but also regarding financing scheme or business model regarding district heating, also procurement guide on how to concretely procure energy infrastructure, and some specific resources regarding integrating solar heat into district heating in cities, but also villages and in more rural area. Regarding waste heat and recovery of waste heat, you have different resources from the reuse heat project about best practice, but also how to assess the risk, what could be the financial instrument for heat recovery, and also example of contractual forms and business model. You can find here some toolbox which cover all the different aspects and stakeholders engagement, mapping, planning, building scenarios, and implementation, which are listed here. The solar district heating toolbox, the Celsius City toolbox, also the Keep Warm Learning Center, and IRENA as also project navigator, which you can find a lot of resources regarding heating and cooling technology development. To almost finish my presentation, I will just mention the fact that the DG Energy commissioned a very new study, which were published very soon. One is on roadmap on policy support for heating and cooling decarbonization, which present different concrete policies measures that can be also promoted at a regional and local level. One study on renewable space heating covering data, technology, fuel mix, regulatory framework, and some decarbonization pathway. A specific study on district heating and cooling in the EU, with also a regulatory framework for this technology and some case studies. And a specific study on renewable cooling. And I think, yeah, it's a subject more and more important at EU level. And it's also some explanation about the delegated act of the EU for the methodology to account renewable energy used in cooling and district cooling network. That can be useful. As I mentioned, 10 exemplary case study for district heating. You can find them in the report, but it covers different countries, maybe some of your country, which can be also useful for you to have a good example. And it's indicate the share of renewable energy, which is quite high in almost all of this case study. And you can find also the different renewable energy sources used by this example. And I will finish with some EU funding opportunities for region and province of the LIFE program, which can also be really interesting for regional authorities. There are different ones. The deadline for application is the 16th of November. So there are some specifically targeting the question of the skills of the workforce, which is the build-up skills call. One which is specifically on strengthening the enabling framework from deep renovation. So if you're working on renovation passport framework for deep renovation, coordination of market actors, there are also money available. A specific call focused on the collective purchase action and procurement of heat pump for the residential sector. And also a quite interesting one on integrated home renovation service for the creation and replication of innovative local and regional home renovation service to improve market condition, methods, and business model of this one-stop shop. There is also a specific call targeting regional and national authorities, which is setting a facilitation structure to accelerate the renovation wave in the public sector. So if you want money for a program which look at supporting cities in decarbonizing their public buildings, you have a call available. And then one call which is specifically on targeting energy poverty, so targeting renovation in vulnerable districts. and also a call specifically on integrating low-grade renewable energy or waste heat in high-temperature district heating. And then with that, I will, just go for the question and discussion part. Well, I'm open to every question are welcome. We have also specific question if you would like to comment about which tool do cities use in your region, which support do you provide them, and also what obstacle do you face to phase out natural gas, coal, and oil in building heating faster, because of course the idea is to move faster. And also if you would like to present some successful scheme and tools from your region, country during the next session, we are really open to your suggestion. Any questions? Yeah, I'm a bit behind schedule. Some of you might have to leave, but
just Julien, maybe to make it clear that we will share the PowerPoint afterwards, right? So yeah, you will have access to all the links and tools that Julien mentioned, because we put hyperlinks in all of them.
are there any also maybe difficulties, obstacle, or a support scheme that you have in your area that you would like to share with the others? Okay, well, if it's time to go for lunch, we understand. Then we'll send you the PowerPoint, and don't hesitate to contact us. We'll also send you a feedback survey. So if you, would be really helpful for us if you can take 2 minutes to fill the feedback survey for the webinar, it would be great. And with that, I wish you a very good day, and thanks a lot to have joined today.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.